Hello, everyone. It's Will, and I am here with a new tarot video. I'm just going to get some smoke on these cards, and I've chosen 3 decks. We are going to look at your ex today. What does your ex think about you? I've got the Trinity Tarot. We're going to use that for the main reading. We're going to use this Citadel Oracle I've recently got to describe your ex. And we're going to use the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle for a focus message at the end of each reading. So let me set aside the Trinity Tarot and the Rainbow Brainskull. We will bring those back later. And let's start with the Citadel Oracle. The introduction part on this video is going to be a little longer than what you've seen me do in the past because I want to get a really good picture of your ex so that you know which video to choose. So we're going to pull 3 cards from the Citadel Oracle for each of the 3 readings for a total of 9, right? And the first card of each set of 3 is going to describe how your ex sees themselves. The second card is going to describe what they don't see about themselves. And the third card will describe how other people view them. Okay? And we're thinking about this like at about this moment in time, right? So let me give these a little shuffle. And we'll do pile 1. These are the first 3 cards for pile 1. And let's choose a crystal. Let's do Selenite. Okay, so pile 1, you're going to be Selenite. And these are the 3 cards that describe your ex. So they think of themselves how? They think of themselves. They don't see this in themselves, and other people see them like that. So pile 1, the Queen. Does your ex see themselves as a queen with determination and sacrifice, ready to maybe make things happen behind the scenes, defend, maybe with some patience and understanding? What they don't see about themselves is that they're really an acolyte. They're learning still, right? They're taking on new projects. They don't understand that their queenliness, so to speak, has not yet been achieved. And other people see them as a patron, as someone who maybe gets what they want using money, who thinks of themselves as a kind of mentor to other people. So this is pile 1. If this describes your ex, the timestamps are below. Go ahead and go to reading 1, Selenite with the Queen, the Acolyte, and the Patron. Let me set this aside now, and we'll pull for group 2. And let's choose Orca Agate. Orca Agate will be group 2. And I've got the Citadel Oracle here. And we'll pull 3 more cards. So if you're still here, that means group 1 didn't describe your ex. Let's see if group 2 does. How they see themselves, what they don't see about themselves, how others see them. They see themselves as the botanist, someone who cares for things slowly over time, who nourishes others, who wants to leave a legacy and maybe wants kids. But what they don't see about themselves is they are the cartographer. They're at a crossroads. They're trying to map the way forward in their life. Maybe they think they've got it figured out, but they don't. They don't see that they don't. they're actually exploring and they don't realize that they're exploring. And others see them as the orator, someone who's good at communication, who presents a persona of confidence, right? But who also might kind of be all talk, really good at communicating and talking, and who looks confident, but who isn't necessarily following through and doing what they say. So this is number 2. If this reminds you of your ex, then please go to number 2, timestamps are below, botanist, cartographer, orator with the Orca agate. Let's grab one more. Let's do the Ocean Jasper. Ocean Jasper for group 3. And we've got the Oracle. Let's give it a little shuffle. And we'll lay out 3 more. So if you're still here, let's see if these cards describe your ex. How they see themselves, what they don't see about themselves, how others see them. They see themselves as the pilgrim who's seeking out new opportunities so that they can grow, someone who's maybe willing to go to great lengths, great ends to make big changes in their life, maybe involving moving. But what they don't see is that they are the chiromancer. This is a palm reader, right? Someone who delivers news, someone who collaborates with others, someone who reads signs, but they don't know that they can do this, right? There's something about maybe their skills or their power that they don't actually recognize in themselves. And others see them as the mascareri, someone who hides their true self, who puts on masks, right? Who goes out and takes a different persona in each situation they're in, and who maybe projects their failings, their failures on other people, or tries to project a kind of image of themselves out into the world that may not be true. So if that describes your ex, then you are group 3, timestamps are below. I will leave it there. We've got the Ocean Jasper for group 3, and I'll put that aside, and I'll see you in your reading. Bye-bye. Hello, group 1. Welcome to your reading. You chose the Selenite here, and we've paired it with 3 oracle cards from the Citadel Oracle. You see your ex as someone who thinks of themselves as a queen, who's determined, ready to make sacrifices, but doesn't understand that they're really still learning, right? That they've got a lot of new projects they need to complete, and who maybe tries to control situations by mentoring others or being in a slightly above position with relation to others, maybe using their finances to manipulate the situation or just to get the upper hand. And that's how others see them. So let me set these aside. I'll just prop them up. And then I've got the Trinity Tarot here. And we're going to do a 9-card spread to answer the question, what does this person, this ex of yours, think of you? I've shuffled the deck. This is the whole deck. But let me give it a little bit more of a shuffle. We're going to lay out 9 cards and give them a read. All right. Let's see. What is this ex of yours thinking of you? What's going on with them? Okay. All right, there we go. So what we'll do is turn the cards over one at a time and then read the whole spread. So we're starting with the Proclaimer. This is the Hierophant in other decks, or the Pope in other decks. So this is someone who's very much by the books. They follow the rules. They're interested in tradition. They're interested in learning or teaching. That's possible too. With the Proclaimer. The Magician, we've got some major arcana here. Someone who has power, manifests, but may also create illusions, may be kind of tricky. Wheel of Fortune, the whole top row here is major arcana. Wheel of Fortune, someone who has some interesting circumstances to deal with, someone who may repeat things, go around in circles, someone who, if something has gone well in their life, now it's going poorly, and if something's gone poorly, now it's going well. Eight of Cups, someone who's trying to move on emotionally, someone who feels like they need to organize their emotions and make some progress forward. Five of Pentacles. So this is the center card from the spread. We'll return to it once we get everything flipped over, but this would indicate potentially some big money problems. Two of Wands, making plans, or at least trying to make plans, but not yet taking action. Six of Swords, again, someone trying to move on. Six of Swords with Eight of Cups is someone who's got some emotional baggage and is trying to get ahead of it, get around it, move beyond it. Five of Swords, someone who has experienced conflict and maybe felt entitled to treat other people in a way that made them feel hurt. Maybe someone who's considering apologizing, someone who regrets some action, some conflict in the past. And finally, a court card. The first court card we're seeing in the spread today, and that's the Champion of Swords. This would be the Knight of Swords in other decks, and the Knight of Swords is someone who can be kind of reckless, rushes off to fight for what they believe in, metaphorically, and who will sometimes keep going in the wrong direction just because that's the way they're headed, whether it's the right thing to do or not. It's hard to get the Champion of Swords to change course once they've started going in a particular way, even if it's obviously not the way they should be going. All right, so now that we've got the cards flipped and said a word or two about each of them, let me just make sure everything's in the frame. I think we're okay. So let's read these, and we'll start with the center card, as I said, and go from there. So we've got the Five of Pentacles in the middle of the spread, and this often will indicate money trouble. So your ex may be going through it in terms of not having enough cash on hand right at the moment. There are other ways of interpreting this, right? Because the pentacles or coins are about resources. And so cash is the first one that comes to mind, but it can also mean money, can mean energy. Maybe they're just really tired, right? Maybe they're having trouble finding the energy to get everything done that they need to get done in their day. And it could be time too. They're just too busy, right? They don't have enough time to sort of take care of themselves. Pentacles are about well-being, and fives are about having a challenge, a change. And so there's a change, a disruption, we might say, a disruption in their well-being. And that's at the center of the entire spread. So they might need someone to help them out a little bit. They might feel like they need some sanctuary. We can see this suggestion of a kind of church back here on the card, indicating somewhere peaceful, somewhere where there's sanctuary, but they're not inside the church, they're outside. And the little dots here are indicating that it's snowing, right? And so it's cold outside. They feel like they're out in the cold, probably like they're kind of rejected from society, right? That no one is there to help them, that they don't have the resources they need to survive and thrive, and they're looking for some kind of sanctuary, right? And so that really is at the center of the whole reading. And so we'll use that context as we read the rest of the cards. Let's look at the corners now. We'll start in the top left and we'll just read the corners clockwise. And these are going to provide the theme and more context for the rest of the reading. And so we've got in the top left corner here the Proclaimer, number 5 of the Major Arcana. And this represents someone who is interested in seeking advice, seeking counsel from someone else, because they want to follow a tradition. They want to follow conventions. In other words, they want someone else to tell them, this is what you should do, and we know that we're right about why you should do it, right? They want someone to proclaim to them, we have the keys to how you can live a good life, how you can be happy. And if you just take the keys and read our book, then all will be well in your life, right? And that's what they're seeking. You know, it's also possible that your ex is actually this person who's trying to give advice to others. That's possible. And I suppose for some of you that might be true. But I suggest more, especially when we're getting 5 pentacles in the center of the reading here, that this is someone who's feeling like they need help from someone else. And so they're going to someone else to get that counsel and advice about what they can do to make their life better, right? We've got the Wheel of Fortune in the top right corner. And so this suggests there's a change of circumstance that your ex has no control over, right? They didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but something has happened to them, which is really disturbed and upset their path in life, right? And I'm seeing that. I would read the Wheel of Fortune differently if there were other cards in the spread, but seeing the 5 of Pentacles at the center of the spread, this is telling me they're probably on the downward slope with the Wheel of Fortune, right? It's not like, Wheel of Fortune could be like winning the lottery, but if we've got 5 of Pentacles in the center, they didn't win the lottery, right? If we had 10 of Pentacles, maybe, then they inherited some money through no action of their own. But when we've got 5 Pentacles in the middle, something unfortunate has happened that they had no control over, and it has hurt their finances or well-being, right? So this could be something like, since it's a wheel, the first thing I think of is like a car, right? Like their car broke down and they need to buy a new car now and they can't afford it. And so they have to find a way to figure out that part of their life because they've got to get around. Maybe they're having to use public transit or take out a big loan to get the new car or borrow money from a parent or a friend or whatever it might be. But they've got some kind of circumstance which is upsetting them, disrupting their life. And I suspect that it's like a material thing. Like maybe they're having to take on extra hours at work in order to make up the missing money. And that's making them feel like they don't have the time to do the things that they want to do, right? Which might also be why they're seeking advice or counsel from someone else who can reassure them and try to make them feel better about where they're at. Down here, we've got Champion of Swords, right? And so this would be like the Knight of Swords in other decks. And this suggests someone who is intellectual, right? Someone who has some intelligence, but also is sort of untested, untried. They're moving forward, they're taking action, they're making progress, but they haven't necessarily achieved what they're after yet, right? They're a knight. They're not a king or a queen, in other words. And so their knightliness indicates someone who's on the path and moving forward on the path, but is not at the destination, so to speak. The swords are one of the two more active suits, and they're one of the two faster suits in terms of speed. And so this would indicate someone who's moving quickly or trying to move very quickly, which can cause recklessness, right? Sometimes they're thinking so quickly that their actions are following right after, and this can get them into trouble because sometimes what they need to do is think and then stop and then act, right? But knights, especially the Knight of Swords, aren't going to stop. They're not going to have that pause between the thought and the action. And so they're just going to have a thought and they're going to go for it, right? Because they can be kind of arrogant and overconfident in their intellectual abilities. And so they're going to think, well, I'm really intelligent. I'm really smart. If I thought I should do this, then of course I should. And I'm just going to go and I'm going to do it. And which could work out. But if they've thought wrong, if they've made the wrong choice, if they've had the wrong plan, they may not notice it right away. And so they might take action in accordance with these ideas and find out too late that they went the wrong direction, if that makes sense. And so this could be what's happening with the Champion of Swords, with your ex. And I would suggest that, maybe what's going on is they made a plan about what to do with their life, and they headed in that direction, but they didn't foresee some circumstance up here with the Wheel of Fortune that maybe it was impossible for them to foresee, right? And so maybe it's not their fault. But the problem is the Champion of Swords, because they go so quickly, they're too far down the path once the circumstance happens that it's hard to stop, right? Like if you're on a galloping horse trying to get it to stop, it's going to take a minute, right? Or think of like if you're in a car and you're going 75 miles an hour on the freeway, you can't just stop, right? You have to slow down first. And that's where they may be struggling. If they're going the wrong way, the slowing down part before they can stop, it might be sort of too late. Over here, we've got the Six of Swords. This is our last corner card. And this is someone who has experienced some conflict, right? Like we would see with the Five of Swords, for example, and is trying now to move on after it, right? So this likely represents whatever, I think the Five of Swords, that is, represents the conflict between you and your ex, right? And the Six of Swords is indicating they are trying really hard to move on after it. We've got this beautiful little butterfly up here suggesting they're trying to transform themselves, right? Transform or like get in a cocoon so that they can emerge instead of a caterpillar or butterfly. So that they can fly away and move on and leave behind all the painful stuff that happened, right? Whether they will be successful at that is another question altogether. But given this card appearing in the corner, it's forming one of the major pillars of the context of the reading, right? So I think this person is struggling pretty hard right now, and they may not even know how the path they're on is the wrong one yet, right? The Champion of Swords here really indicates they may be going so quickly that they don't understand that they're going the wrong way. All right. So let's read the columns now. We'll read the sort of the far past and then closer to the present and then what's coming up for them. And that'll be in the future. And then we'll get to reading the rows and then see what else we can find. So on the far left here, this represents the past of the situation, like what led up to where they're at now. And so we'll start with the Proclaimer. And we've got them trying to, if they're a student, for example, this would indicate them just being a student. Uh, but it could indicate more broadly they're seeking advice, they're seeking counsel. Like it could also be a therapist if they're in therapy. The proclaimer could be the therapist who's explaining to them, like trying to give them a set of traditions and conventions and ways that have worked for other people that they can fix what's wrong. Okay. We've then got Eight of Cups and Six of Swords. And so this really does indicate to me that the breakup between the two of you seems to be in the past, which I guess that's silly to say. Of course that's true. Like they wouldn't be your ex otherwise. But they're trying to move on from it, right? And so this, I think the proclaimer here is indicating they're specifically seeking out, or were specifically seeking out, counsel from someone, advice from someone, counseling from someone in response to the fact that the relationship broke up, right? Eight of Cups is about emotional movement and organization, right? Stacking their metaphorical cups, their emotions in a way that makes sense to them, like getting their emotions in order, so to speak. Eight of Cups can represent someone leaving behind a situation that was maybe stable but unfulfilling in some way. And so maybe you, or maybe both of you, found something about the situation not totally satisfying and decided to leave, but something couldn't leave, right? Because the Six of Swords is often a card of emotional baggage, right? Like you're trying to take this boat away over the river that will get you somewhere else, but all these swords have come along with you, and these swords hurt. They prick you, and they remind you of pain that you're feeling. And so it's like they're trying to get away, but they can't just get over. They can't just be like, I'm done, right? And so it's hurting them trying to move away. So in the middle column, we've got the Magician. So in this current moment, they're trying to manifest a change in their life, and they may be using trickery and illusions to try to do that. The Magician can also mean just someone who's like doing like a side hustle, or it could be their main hustle too. And I think of that because we've got the Five of Pentacles here. So like hustling to make more money, right, is what comes to mind. Gathering up the resources that they need in order to make things happen in their life. That's what they're trying to do. And they're doing it. Why? Because they're broke. Financially or otherwise, right? There's some big resource that they just haven't got. And it's interesting to me that we've got the Five of Swords here in the middle coming after the Six of Swords. And so that indicates to me that there's some other conflict. One of two things is happening. Either the breakup is still, even though they're trying to move past it, is still so central to their life that it's like it's still happening, right? Or there could have been some conflict between you two after the breakup, right? Like you've broken up, but the conflict is still happening in some way, right? Or there's just conflict with someone else, right? Like maybe in a work or financial situation, like they're fighting with someone at work, and so they lost their job, and so now they have no money, and so they're trying to find a way to trick someone else into letting them back in, or giving them a new job, something like that. Any of that could be true for the middle column. Over here on the right, this is what's coming. And so there's some circumstance that maybe hasn't happened yet, or is only in the process of happening, which they have no control over. There's absolutely nothing they could do in advance. It's Wheel of Fortune, so it's fate, it's destiny, it's out of their hands, and it is coming for them. And it's going to require them to do some pretty intense planning, right? And so the Two of Wands here can just indicate planning. It can also indicate someone who wants to like do something out in the world. We see the globe here. Like someone who wants to act and take some action, right? Like out in the world, like go get a job or travel or whatever it might be. But is unable to do that in the current moment because they still have planning to do. Or it can also indicate someone who's afraid to leave home. Two of Wands can be someone who, it can even indicate like agoraphobia, right? Like someone who's like has a phobia of leaving home. But it's someone who is looking out at the world from their safe space at home, but not able or ready to go out into the world. And so they might be in a position here where they're like stuck at home a lot, where they're planning, making plans, trying to figure out how they're going to go back into society, into the world again, but not necessarily doing it. And here with the Champion of Swords, maybe that's when they're recognizing that they've been on the wrong path and they need to change directions. I mean, we could hope that for them, right? If we're kind, we could hope that that if they are at home planning, that maybe with enough of that, they'll be able to recognize the wrong path that they've been on. So let's read the rows now, and these will indicate what they're thinking on the top, right? What they're doing in the middle, and on the bottom, this will indicate what they don't see, what they don't understand, or like root causes, what's causing everything else to happen. So the top row, what they're thinking they need advice, they need counsel, they need help. They need some group, some institution, some knowledgeable person to teach them what to do, right? Because they know that they need power, they know that they need to do something in their life, and they're maybe to some extent aware that circumstances for them are changing, right? And that things totally out of their control are coming, and maybe someone else could give them some advice to help them overcome those. But it's really, that is naive, because the Wheel of Fortune is like, you don't have control. And this indicates they're thinking about ways to gain power, to manifest something in the situation. Wheel of Fortune doesn't let you manifest. Wheel of Fortune, good or bad, whatever comes, that's how it was going to be. And this is the card that says, just roll with it, right? You have to roll with it. If you try to get over it or around it, you can't, right? So that's what they're thinking. How can I cope with this situation? How can I have power over it? How can someone teach me what to do, right? What are they doing? Well, what are they doing? They're trying to make plans for the future because they're feeling emotionally lost, right? Like they're emotionally wandering around and financially disrupted, or if not financially, materially in some way, time, energy, money, values, resources, that kind of stuff, right? And why? What is it that's causing all of this that maybe they're not totally aware of? Well, it's the breakup, obviously, right? The Six of Swords, Five of Swords, emotional baggage that they still have that they are not acknowledging. We know they're not acknowledging it because this card appears in the bottom row, right? Where there are things they don't see, right? The breakup is still with them. They haven't gotten over it. Notice that these three cards in the corner, right? These are the cards I would read as the breakup. Maybe the middle one, if the breakup impacted their finances in some way too, then I would maybe add all four of those. But these three are like the wound of the breakup, right? The Eight of Cups, the Six of Swords, the Five of Swords. And two of them are on the bottom, right? Indicating your ex is not aware of the extent to which that breakup is still in the present impacting them, right? And maybe causing them to be reckless in their actions. You know, and the champion of swords, what do we do with swords? Swords hurt. We use them to attack, to defend, to cut, right? And so this is someone who might hurt others too because of the pain, the emotional baggage that they've got in the past. But they don't know that. They're not trying to do that. Don't misread me, right? But like someone who has a sword that doesn't know that they have a sword can hurt people with that sword. Does that make sense? Right? And so if the champion of swords, your ex, doesn't know they've got this sword in their hand, that's their emotional baggage and the conflict from the past, you better watch out for that person. I'd be way more afraid of someone who doesn't know they have a sword than someone who does know they have a sword, right? Because at least if they know they've got it, you know, they could choose to be careful with it. You know, like whoever this person dates next, for example, is going to have to deal with this emotional baggage because your ex is not aware of the extent to which it's affecting them. Okay. Let's end the reading there. This went on longer than I expected. Oh no, but I was going to pull, let's see. Let me get the rainbow Brainskull out. So these I want to pull as focus cards. I want you, we've talked so much about your ex today. What's something for you? I just want to leave you with a little message, and we'll use the rainbow Brainskull for that. These are an oracle cards. We'll just pull one little card and we'll say, today after reading this, what is the one thing that you should be focusing on, remembering, and keeping in mind for yourself? It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this ex of yours. Oh, okay. What would ultra intelligent imaginary me do? This is your focus. What you should imagine if you were ultra intelligent, super intelligent. What would that imaginary version of yourself do today? That's what you should do. That will be different for each of you. I wish you all the best with it, and I will end the reading there. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. Tell me in the comments what you thought, and I will see you in your next reading. Bye, everybody. Hello, group 2, and welcome to your reading. You chose the Orca Agate, which we've got here, and we've got to describe your ex, the botanist, someone who's interested in helping things grow, or at least who thinks of themselves that way, someone who wants to leave a legacy, maybe have kids. We've got the cartographer, someone who doesn't understand, doesn't know about themselves, that they're actually still mapping out their life, that they're at a crossroads, they have choices to make, they need to explore, they don't know that. And who other people see as a really good speaker, a good communicator, who's confident, but who might also be using their words to manipulate situations, right? Someone who's, you know, I think of like a politician or a lawyer, someone who's really good with words, but can you trust them? They can use those words to manipulate the truth, right? And make things seem different than they actually are. So I've got the Trinity Tarot here. We're going to lay out a 9-card box or portrait spread, as it sometimes is called. And we're going to answer the question, what's going on with your ex? Like, what do they think of you? What are they feeling? This is all about your ex today, except for the last card we'll draw from the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle. That's for you, right? But we'll do that at the end of the reading. So 9 cards to tell us a story about your ex. Let me just give these a little more shuffle, make sure they're ready to go. Okay, that feels good to me. Let's knock on these, cut the deck, and here we go. 9 cards. We'll flip them over one at a time and say a few words about each before going back in and reading the whole spread. The center card will help us to determine what's going on at the middle of their life. The corners give us context and theme. Then we'll read columns and rows, and that should tell the rest of the story. All right. We'll just go in the same order I laid them out. So we're starting with the Ace of Swords. A sharp mind, that would make sense for an orator. A sharp mind, someone who is trying to have a victory over something, someone who is ready to pick up the sword and fight, right? Someone who has a new idea, maybe some new thought. Champion of Pentacles. This is the Knight of Pentacles in other decks. So this is someone who's a hard worker, someone who's steady, secure, someone who puts in their everyday work, labor, whatever it is, to get things going in their life. This is also someone who can be very slow, right? Very slow to act, and who can be boring. Some people would find this person boring. They also are prone to like OCD, like repetitive behaviors that go over and over and over. This person is really good at that, but that can be a problem for them too. This can be someone who falls into patterns and repeats them and maybe doesn't understand that they enjoy unconsciously the repetition of the pattern, and it may not be good for them. Maybe kind of an addictive personality that could come through with the Champion of Pentacles. Okay, and Death. A big transformation, a big transition. Nothing in life is ever the same after the Death card. Okay. Let's see. Justice. Taking responsibility for one's actions. And we've got another sword here. It's not from the suit of swords, but I can't help but make the connection between the ace up here and then the scales down here. We will say more about that when we read the columns. The center card of the spread is the Three of Pentacles. So this is about trying maybe to work together with others, collaborate with others on some project, maybe actually at work. It can also just mean a small sum of money, right? If we think of pentacles as representing money, then we could think of 3 here as representing just a little bit. 4 would be enough. 3 is not quite enough. 8 wands, busy, busy, busy. It can indicate travel. It can indicate coming to a decision. Crown of Pentacles, known as the King of Pentacles in other decks. So this is someone who has plenty of resources, has control over them, is able to be generous with them if they feel like that's what they should be doing. This might be your person's father or a parent figure. I'm thinking that because they both come from Pentacles. They're 2 court cards from the Pentacle suit. We've got this is the one who's in charge, right? And this is the one who's like the not in charge, who's beneath the other one. It could be flipped depending on your unique circumstance, but like there are 2 people here and they're from sort of the same group or family. This could be a boss at work too. And one of them is subordinate to the other, and the champion is subordinate to the crown, right? Crown of Pentacles is someone who's comfortable. They've achieved a lot in their life. They can also be too materialistic. They can be overly sort of sensual. Like this can be someone who eats too much or drinks too much. They just want like embodied pleasure, and that can be a problem sometimes for this person. Three of Cups. This is about being with friends, right? Getting together with some close friends, having a good time, going out, maybe drinking. I mean, obviously with the cups, right? Ooh, and Three Swords. Okay, so this, of course, we think of heartbreak because we have the heart there stabbed several times with the swords, and then the images on the side indicate trails of tears, right? This is sort of a path of tears the person is walking. Can also indicate learning or trying to use your mind to make sense of your feelings, make sense of your heart. And that card ends the spread. And I notice that the Three Cups become Three Swords, right? Like hanging out, drinking with friends turns into heartbreak, right? Or realizing you have to use your mind and not your cups to make yourself feel better, so to speak, to learn. I'm going to push these cards up a bit so that they're hopefully in the frame a little bit better, if they're not already. And let's read the spread now. So we'll start with the center card and then go to the corners. Center card, of course, is Three of Pentacles. And so I suspect that your ex is working, like actually at a job. That's the most likely thing that I would think of with Three Pentacles. They're collaborating with others, but they really have to put the work in. This isn't like they've got enough. They're working hard, and it takes lots of people, more than one person, to get done whatever it is that they are trying to get done. If it's not actually referring to a job, it could refer just to their material everyday life, right? So maybe they're trying to get things done around the house. This can also be, threes are growth, and pentacles can be behavior. So it could be that they're trying to grow their behavior, like improve the way they've been behaving in some way, like self-improvement, like improve their well-being, grow their well-being. That could be another way of interpreting this. Like they're trying to improve themselves. Let's look at the corners now, and these will provide us a kind of theme or context for the reading. And so Ace of Swords, Death, Three of Swords, and the Crown of Pentacles. This is our context. Ace of Swords, they want to start a new project of some kind, but it's at the very early potential stages. Like they've got an idea, but they haven't necessarily done anything with that idea. Ace of Swords, I'm also thinking, since it's the first card in the spread and the last one we've got down here is the three, we use swords to hurt, we use swords to fight. And so an Ace of Swords can mean making a decision. So maybe we've got a situation here where they're trying to decide what it is to do. And what are they trying to decide to do about death? This is what comes to mind here. So something has ended. Something is over. This could be your relationship with this person. This could be something else, but that, given the context of everything else, that's what I'm inclined to think is they're trying to make a decision about how to deal with the end, the death of something, right? Like the death of a relationship. And they're trying to see the sun coming up between those two towers. When we think of death, we think of a big transformation. But also, if you think of the order of the cards in the major arcana, 13 is death and 14, of course, is temperance, which is all about healing. And so I would think of, after death, one needs healing. And I don't know that I see any cards here that indicate that that is happening. So they're trying to make a decision. They're trying to use their mind to make sense of this metaphorical death that's happened. Which brings us to the Three Swords, heartbroken. They feel totally heartbroken. They're very sad. They may be crying. We see the tears on the card there, right, on each side of it. And they're trying to expand or grow their mind from one sword to three to make sense of what went wrong, what happened, what occurred that brought about this metaphorical death. Somewhere this Crown of Pentacles person is involved. Without having you here to ask you some questions about the different people in the situation, I can't know for certain who this is, right? And I suppose it could be different for each of you. This could be that person's father, right? Or a powerful parental figure of some kind, or boss, right? I suppose it could be you also if they think of you as someone who is in a superior position financially or materially or in terms of well-being, right? Like this King of or Crown of Pentacles has these gems, right? They've got the crown, they've got all the stuff they need, the material stuff they need. The Champion of Pentacles is still chasing their pentacle. It's not up here on top of the crown yet. They're still working towards it, working after it. And so that is another way we could think of this, is there is someone in their life that sort of is above them. And I think that's adding to the sense of heartbreak and needing to grow their mind to understand this loss that has happened, right? Someone else has all the well-being, and they don't. And that's forming the context for this reading. So let's read the columns: past, present, future, left, middle, right. On the left, we'll start with this Ace of Swords. So in the past, they've had to make a decision, and it probably involves some kind of conflict, right? This can be a small victory that they've had with like their words, their communication, some small, like maybe there's a fight. And justice then would indicate, I think whenever I see justice, that everyone in the situation, including you and them and whoever's involved, right, has to take responsibility sooner or later, has to take responsibility for everything that they actually have done, right? Justice might be slow, and indeed it is slow, but if you hurt someone, eventually you have to pay for it, right? It'll come back to you, maybe stronger than 3 times stronger than you gave it out. You have to then take it back. So I suspect in the past there's a situation where like here's what I'm seeing. They fought with their Ace of Swords. They drew their sword against a king, a crown of pentacles, right? And now they have to pay for that. That's what I'm seeing. They pulled that sword out up against the Crown of Pentacles, like they started an argument. They decided to use their words in a sharp way to sort of prick or annoy or get at somebody. And maybe they didn't think anything necessarily would result from that, but then justice came at them, and it turns out the scales are balanced and they are going to have to pay. Or if not pay, like just face the consequences of their actions. That's what I always think of with justice here. So that is in the past, though, right? This argument, decision, fight that involved the Crown of Pentacles and that someone has to take responsibility for happened in the past. What's happening now is that Champion of Pentacles is trying to improve themselves and maybe trying to forget what happened in the past by throwing themselves into a lot of work, and not only work, but also, I suspect, going out with friends a lot, right? Distracting themselves perhaps by trying to have a really good time. And if those cards had appeared somewhere else, I would read them differently. And I'm reading them as distracting themselves because usually this card is not read that way. But I would read it that way because we've got this 3 of swords right next to it, which we'll move into in a second. But like they're going out, they're trying to have fun, they're hanging out with friends, maybe they're going to bars or whatever it is they do. I suppose it could be online too, right? Hanging out with like friends virtually. But whatever it is they do to make themselves feel fulfilled, to have a good time, to be happy, to have fun, they're doing a lot of that. And trying to, I think, forget about this argument, fight, altercation. Maybe instead of taking responsibility for it, they're distracting themselves with work and fun, right? What's coming up for them in the future? Well, this death card looms over the whole reading, doesn't it? It's one of just 2 major arcana cards that we've got. And so I actually, before I read this column, let's read the 2 major arcana cards in relation to one another. And so justice and death, they need to take responsibility for the fact that they are responsible. The consequence of the action they took with the Ace of Swords is the end of something. Yeah, they made a decision. They did something with a sword, and now they have to take responsibility. And what is the response? What is the consequence? Death, right? Something has ended, and it's their fault. So, what's coming up for them in the future? I think there's going to be a recognition that it really is over, right? They're distracting themselves with the working and the playing. But coming up, this is going to dawn on them that it really is ended, right? And then I think they're going to try to get really busy, work very quickly, and maybe it may involve travel of some kind. Like if they've gone away, they might be traveling back. Or 8 of Wands is always about like moving quickly, right? And going somewhere. Doesn't necessarily have to be a big distance, but being very busy about something, going very swiftly to do something to try to make sense with their mind of this heartbreak, right? This is what's coming up for them. So I think maybe it hasn't totally sunk in yet for your ex that it really is over and that it's their fault with the justice card here, and that it's hurting them. They don't know that, but they are going to know that. Let's now read the rows. And so the top row this is what they're thinking about. The middle row is what they're doing, what's staring them in the face. And the bottom row is what they're not seeing, not understanding. This is like what's causing everything else. So what they're thinking about is Ace of Swords, Champion of Pentacles, and Death. So they are aware to some extent of the fact that the decision they made, Ace of Swords, is bringing them, Champion of Pentacles, into a place where this relationship has ended, right? So they do know that part of it. They know that they made a decision which brought about the end of the relationship. But what they're doing here, the sense of them taking responsibility is all in the past. Like they might just be thinking, well, I was trying to be fair. I was trying to balance everything out, right? But they're distracting themselves then with work. And in the future, they may not be planning, but they are likely to be very, very busy. I could even see, I think that there's 2 paths, at least, that they might end up going down. One is to continue distracting themselves, because I could see that 8 of Wands being busy, busy, busy is just more distraction. right? It could, if they can channel that energy into making sense of what's happening, maybe they could learn something. I don't think we can answer that today, because there are too many variables that they haven't figured out. And so I don't think we can answer that. But this Eight of Wands could go either way. Either they're just going to keep distracting themselves by being busy, or maybe they could direct all of this energy in the right direction to make sense of what went wrong. What they don't understand is how much influence, how important this Crown of Pentacles person is. This person who unconsciously, without knowing it, they see this person as being superior to them. So, like, I think this is you, and they see you as being like a couple ranks above them, but they don't know that they think that, right? That's why we see this card in the bottom row. They aren't aware that they're sort of valuing you in that way. They're not aware either of how much they're dedicating towards trying to distract themselves by having a good time with friends, right? By like drinking a lot or going out or whatever it might be. And they're totally unaware of how heartbroken they are. Pretty straightforward there with the Three of Swords. They don't understand yet. Their mind has not wrapped around the fact that that they're really hurt, right? That this loss has really hurt them. They just don't get it yet. It's down there, but they're not aware of it, so to speak. Okay, I think that gives a pretty good picture of what's going on. They really value you, but their unconscious mind is not allowing them to recognize that because of how much it would hurt. Let's pull a card for you. We've talked about your ex enough today, I think. So I'm going to grab the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle, give it a shuffle, and we're going to pull a card. This is for you. This is what you should be doing right after you finish this video. This is what you should be focusing on. We're just going to pull one card from this oracle. This is all about you now. Let me just shuffle a little more, get them good and shuffled. All right, you get this. Ooh, okay. You choose every piece of content you consume. So maybe this is suggesting be mindful about the content you're consuming, right? What are you watching on YouTube these days? Thanks for watching my channel, by the way. But you choose every piece of content you consume. So choose what's good for you. Yeah. Choose what will improve your well-being. Choose what improves your health and your mind and your behavior, right? Be good to yourself. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the reading. Consider liking and subscribing if you got something out of it. And I'll see you next time in your next reading. Have a great day. Be well. Bye. Hello, Group 3, and welcome to your reading. You've got the Ocean Jasper, and we've paired that with 3 cards from the Citadel Oracle that describe your ex. They think of themselves as the pilgrim, someone who is ready to go a really long way to seek out opportunities to grow. But underneath that, they're the chiromancer, someone who has something they really want to say, but can't find the right way to say it, is having trouble delivering that news. It's like on the tip of their tongue. They want to speak up. They want to say it to other people, collaborating with other people, but they don't know how much they want to say it, right? And other people see them as the masquerade, someone who puts on masks, hides who they really are, projects images that aren't necessarily true of themselves out into the world. That is your X, as you have chosen these cards from the others available. Let's pull now some cards from the Trinity Tarot, and these will give us a reading about what your ex thinks of you, what's going on with them, what they're doing, how they are, all of that good stuff. We'll lay out a 9-card box spread to get answers to all of their questions. And then at the end of the reading, I will pull a focus card for you from the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle. And that card will give you something to focus on, to act upon, to think about at the end of the reading. So let's give these just one more little shuffle and pull 9 cards. All right, so we will flip these over one at a time once I've got them laid out. And then once they're all turned up, we will read them. We'll start with the center card to get the most important part of the reading. We'll read the corners for context and theme. We'll read the columns for past, present, and future. And we'll read the rows for what they're thinking, what they're doing, what they don't know. Okay, here we go. Strength. We've got strength up here. So they're trying to be themselves. Trying to be themselves. Trying to be strong. Whoops. Crown of Swords, aka King of Swords. This is an authority of some kind, someone who's trying to use their mind to overcome whatever's in their way. Keeper of Swords, that's the Queen of Swords. So we've got a couple. We've got a pair here, King and Queen, Crown and Keeper. They're both from Swords, meaning they're from the same suit, so they're from like the same family or group. So I think of them as a couple. Six of Cups, memories, remembering how things used to be, nostalgia, maybe being stuck in the past. Eight of Pentacles, working. I will say, in all the readings I've done today, Pentacles showed up in the center of every spread now. So y'all's exes are working. Whether they're working for money or it's just that they're like working on themselves. Eight of Pentacles can also mean repeating the same task over and over and over again. Apprentice of Wands, aka Page of Wands, someone who is exploring, someone who is starting over. Seven Swords, deception, trickery, strategizing, stealing, lying. Oh, the Sun, friendship, going outside, illuminating something that was in shadow, finding something out. And finally, Keeper of Wands. This is the Queen of Wands in other decks. So we've got 4 court cards to think about here. 2 from the Swords, 2 from the Wands. We'll see what comes up as I read the rest of the cards, but I'm kind of inclined to think of them as different aspects of some people's personalities, right? Like I'm thinking one way to read this, for example, would be that the Keeper of Swords becomes the Keeper of Wands, and the Crown of Swords becomes the Apprentice of Wands. That would be a big demotion from king to page, right? The other way to read this would be that there are 4 people involved, right? Like one of these is you, one of these is, I mean, the apprentice could be a kid, someone immature. We might think of the crown having multiple love interests. The crown is interested in 2 different keepers, right? And there's like another young, immature person who's involved in all of that. So a couple ways to read the court cards. So we'll get to that later. But let's start with the center card of the spread, 8 of Pentacles. So this is someone who's working steadily, uniformly every day, with the hope of making progress, although there's probably some fear in there too that it's not going to pay off. We don't always know in advance that it will. We see the tools that they've got here. So they're like finding tools for themselves, maybe to actually make money or just to improve their well-being, their material well-being in some way. Another way, though, of reading this card would be like they're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over, and it's not changing. Right? So I always think of repetition with 8 of Pentacles. It's like, I'm going to make this pentacle exactly like this, and I'm going to make the next one exactly like this, and I'm going to make the next one, and and on and on and on, and not actually doing anything different. So this would suggest maybe that your ex is doing exactly what they used to do and nothing has changed. Let's read the corners now. These give us theme and context. We'll start with strength and go clockwise. So strength is about someone who is trying to be themselves, their like authentic self out in public with other people, in front of other people, in a way that might scare them a little bit, like it feels like a risk. It can also just be about taking a risk more generally, that they're doing something that's maybe kind of risky, right? It can also be, of course, in older decks, it can be about physical strength. We tend today to think of it more like inner strength, right? Like strength of emotion or strength of mind. So it could be any number of different kinds of trying to be strong. Keeper of Swords over here is the Queen of Swords. This is about making judgments. This is someone who's very good at using their mind and their words to assess a situation and make judgments about it, to say, like, here's how things really are. Here's who did what, and here's who's responsible for this and that and the other thing. It's someone generally who is very patient, who has a lot of understanding, right? And so if you were here, I would ask you some questions about these different court cards to help us figure out who is who in the reading. But this could be you, for example, right? If it's not you, like something else to consider is the Queen or the Keeper of Swords sometimes says things without thinking, or rather says exactly what she thinks or he thinks, right? The gender's not important, without considering that it could hurt somebody else, right? We've got another keeper, aka queen, down here in the bottom right corner. And so this would be someone who is very social, who likes to go out, who can be the life of the party. this is someone who likes to have fun, likes excitement, likes stimulation, but isn't necessarily great all the time at giving others the spotlight, so to speak. This person can be more of a kind of performer, right? And wants to steal the limelight. Or if not steal it, be in the limelight. They want some attention. Right? And so let's look at the Seven of Swords, and then I'll just say one more word about these cards in the corners. Seven of Swords indicates that there was some deception, lying, something not totally above board has happened that has created the current situation. Somebody did something they shouldn't have done, right? We see there's spaces here for seven swords, but one of them is missing, indicating like a theft, a deception, a lie. Something was taken that shouldn't have been taken. Something was done that shouldn't have been done. And so, treachery, deceit. Okay, so what I'm kind of getting here is maybe a cheating situation because we've got the two different keepers. And so I'm thinking like your ex maybe took a risk to be with two people at once, right? And that was a deception. Does that ring true for any of you? For some of you, I suspect it will. For others, maybe it won't. Maybe this reading isn't for you. That's sort of what I'm going to go with here. Let me know in the comments if that strikes a chord with you. There's other ways I could take it, and if you were here, we could discuss those if this doesn't resonate, but I'm going to go with what I'm seeing most clearly, okay? And I hope that it's going to work out. So I'm suspecting that we're in a infidelity kind of situation here, whether in terms of like sex or emotional infidelity or somebody doing something with somebody else that they shouldn't have probably been doing and maybe hiding about it, lying about it, deceiving, some deception, taking that risk, showing their true colors when maybe they should have just behaved themselves, right? That's the sense that I'm getting here. And then if we pair that up with what I'd said a moment ago about the Eight of Pentacles, I would suggest that hasn't changed. I think of the phrase once a cheater, always a cheater. Someone who, right, this is what they used to do, and then uniformly they just keep repeating it. They just keep doing it. Like each pentacle looks the same as the one before because they keep repeating that behavior over and over and over again. So that's what I'm getting here, that the breakup probably involved deceit about another person, that your ex took the risk of doing something they probably shouldn't have been doing. Let's read the columns now from left to right. And so the left column is past, middle is present, and right is future. So what happened in the past? They took this risk and lied about it, deceived about it. And it had to do with some memory of the past, right? Six of Cups is about nostalgia, feeling like, oh, how great it was things used to be. I think of like someone who's maybe cheating with an ex, right? Like they were with you, but then they went back to somebody else from their past. That's a possibility here. If that's not actually what happened, it's that feeling of like, oh, I want things to be how they were, exciting in the moment. Like when you first start the relationship and it feels like there's so much potential, I want to feel that again, right? And so I'm going to hook up with somebody else to get that burst of feeling, even though I'm going to have to lie about it with my current partner, right? That's the sense that I'm getting in the past. So this card, I think, maybe helps to answer a little bit about the specific context of why they did it. But, I tend to read the major arcana as really describing the why. And so why it's like a part of their personality, um, especially with the Eight of Pentacles, right? Like they are represented here by the Strength card, suggesting they want to feel powerful. They want to feel the center of attention. They want to feel like a leader. They want to feel like they're in control, right? And that's what prompted the behavior. More generally, specifically, it has to do, I think, with some memory of the past, right? We can also read Six of Cups. If it's not a memory of the past, we can read it as a path towards feeling fulfilled, a path towards happiness, right? And so maybe they really naively thought that deception was the path to happiness, right? That underneath the path, the Six of Cups, path towards happiness, was lies and deception. And that would be really unfortunate, I think, because I don't think that's ever going to be true for anybody. You know, that the way to make yourself happy is to lie to someone else. I don't think so, right? All right. So that's all in the past. That's what happened. What's happening now? Well, now we get Crown of Swords. And so I would read that Crown of Swords as probably being your ex. Given the context of everything else in the spread. That's most likely what I'm seeing. And so this is someone who thinks of themselves as an authority and might be very intelligent, but is also capable of hurting people, right? They've got a sword, and swords are used to hurt and defend. There's someone who enjoys debates. There's someone who likes discussions or arguments, even. I can imagine them someone who you might have to argue with, or maybe had to argue with at some point in the past. They are good with words. They can be good communicators, but they can use that to their advantage. And if they want to, they know it's wrong, but they can twist the truth. They can use their words to twist the truth if they feel like that's what they need to do. They're repeating the same behaviors from before. Not necessarily anything has changed. If they work, they're working. And the sun would indicate, on the one hand, they may be spending a lot of time with friends, right? We got that in a previous reading today, too, with the Three of Cups. But I always think of friendship with the sun, trying to be happy, right? Trying to find warmth in their life. But also the idea that the sun, if we think about it in the order of the major arcana, comes right after the moon. The moon is about confusion and something being distorted in the moonlight, not fully visible. The sun comes along and illuminates everything brightly, so it's all out in the open and everybody can see what's really going on. So what's happening in the present is that the deception has come to light, right? Whatever was hidden before, everybody can see it now. It's all out in the open. So what's coming in the future? Well, this is tricky because we've got all court cards, right? And so without knowing for sure that there's a fourth person represented by the Apprentice of Wands, I am going to take a different road and read the Crown of Swords, feeling in the present like this person is an authority, right? Being demoted to an apprentice between these two possible partners, right? That's what I would see is they thought they were a king. They thought they were a crown of swords. And now in the future, it's going to turn out that between these two people that they deceived, they're just a little explorer. They're just a little apprentice of wands whose staff has fallen on the floor, right? And so they're going to have to explore new ways to move forward in life. They're sort of demoted from king to page, and they're stuck between these two people who they have deceived. And I'm getting deceived, of course, from Seven of Swords. So, demotion not necessarily at their job, but a demotion in life, right? They're not up on their throne anymore. They're down on the ground and looking with their telescope for hope with the stars that we see in the background. Let's read the rows now. And so the top row is what they're thinking, the middle is what they're doing, what's staring them in their face, and the bottom is going to tell us what they don't recognize, what they don't see, what they don't know. So, what they're thinking. They're thinking about the fact that they took a risk. They currently believe themselves to be an authority, to be strong and capable, right? And they're thinking about, I would imagine it's you, right? But it's whoever's represented by the Keeper of Swords. They're thinking about this person that they were most recently in a partnership with. That's what I would think. They're both from the Suit of Swords, so they're a couple. So they're thinking about their relationship, right? And the risk that they took in the past regarding that relationship. What's staring them in the face? What are they sort of engaged in right now? Memories, again, nostalgia for how things used to be. It's the pattern repeating. Why did they take the risk? Why did they take the risk to deceive? Because of these memories, this nostalgia of the past. What are they doing now? It's still there, right? It's repeating. Nothing is changing. They're doing the same pattern over and over based on these memories of how they used to feel, of how things used to be, right? And they're realizing that what they ought to be doing, instead of looking to the past, is look through this telescope to the future, right? And maybe they can do something different. If we're trying to be optimistic about what we're seeing here, I hope that that's what's happening, is that they're looking forward to the future so that they can make some change in their repetitive behavior, so that they can grow, be different, do better, grow up, At the bottom, underneath all of this, what is driving it that they don't understand? They don't totally get how much of an impact the deception, the lying, the mischief that they got up to, the planning, the scheming, the strategizing that they did, they don't totally get, I think, that it's all come to light. I don't know that they're totally aware that everybody realizes what they did, right? Including, I think, if we read this Keeper of Wands as the other person, right, as like maybe the person they cheated with, that person knows too, and they maybe are not aware of that fact, right? That's what I would get from this. So, we can hope that in their demotion from Crown of Swords to Apprentice of Wands, that they learn something, but I think that is very much up in the air. It is a possibility, but I don't see anything to indicate change for this person, unfortunately. I'm not saying it's impossible or couldn't happen. I guess that would maybe be another reading, but the Apprentice of Wands is about exploring and trying to figure things out, trying something new, and whether that will work is a different question. So let's talk about you now. We've been talking about your ex for so long. Let's pull out our Rainbow Brainskull Oracle, give them a shuffle, and pull one focus card for you. This is a message that you should be concentrating on as soon as the video finishes, something for you to think about, maybe some action you can take, something to remember in order to promote your best possible well-being. one more little pack of cards, and then we will get your message. All right, your focus message. Oh, the point of sleep is to let it all go. If you haven't been sleeping well, that should be your priority. Maybe get yourself some melatonin or a new chamomile tea works really well for me. Sleep, rest, and let it all go. That is your message. Get a good night's sleep tonight. All right, I'll leave it there. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the reading. Consider liking and subscribing if you got something out of it and would like to help me grow the channel. I would very much appreciate it. Have a great day. Have a great night. Sleep well tonight, and I will see you in your next reading. Bye, everyone.